Top 10 horror films that claim to be based on real events. 10 Place, A Nightmare on Elm Street. In 1984, the film A Nightmare on Elm Street was discharged. The film, which includes the famous miscreant Freddy Krueger, who chases the offspring of Elm Street and butchers them in their fantasies, is scary enough all alone. However, hearing there may be some fact to this urban legend was too much. The genuine occasions, while frightening, are not as motivated as the hook gave executioner the film portrays. Filmmaker Wes Craven said he considered the thought for the content in the wake of perusing an article in the LA Times about a Hmong family who fled the Cambodian killing fields and relocated to America. The family's most youthful child started having distinctive bad dreams, regularly remaining wakeful for a considerable length of time. He was anxious about the possibility that on the off chance that he rested, the things in his fantasies would slaughter him. Eventually, rest overwhelmed the kid and his feelings of trepidation worked out as expected, as he did in Certainty Die. 9 Place, Nesna Jomsi. Disconnected home, late night thump on the entryway. That is the place. The similitudes between reality and the 2008 film The Strangers ends. In the film, a couple is tortured, pursued, and in the end, spoilers, killed by a gathering of doll-confronted executioner. As per the trailer, it depended on evident occasions. This is a genuine case of how far creative mind can take one with simply the seed of a thought. 8 Place, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In 1974, Tobe Hooper conveyed a film so stunning it left some doubting its rational soundness. So envision the stun when it was declared that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was propelled by genuine life. The film, which delineates a group of barbarians who snatch and torment a gathering of youthful voyagers, was a hit, halfway due to the genuine story publicity. Yet similitudes to genuine occasions were minor. In the film, the character Leatherface wears a veil of human substance. Hooper guaranteed Leatherface, just as a couple of other little subtleties depended on sequential executioner Ed Gein. Gein made light shades and other family unit things from skin and bones, and furthermore made a lady suit that he wore to profess to be his mom. 7 Place, Return of the Living Dead. In 1968, the film Night of the Living Dead would perpetually change the manner in which we saw zombies, making another class that, years after the fact, is as yet going solid. The class has forked into different bearings, and everything began with 1985's Return of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead originated from a difference between George Romero and John Russo on the best way to deal with spin-offs of the Night of the Living Dead establishment. It gets confounding, yet toward the beginning of Return of the Living Dead, we see the words dependent on true events. 6 Place, Poltergeist. In 1958, Seaford, NY. The Herman family made national news in the wake of detailing abnormal events in their home. Odd commotions, objects being moved and bottles out of nowhere popping their tops and spilling their contents. At first the family associated a trick by one with the children. However, after a few additional episodes, specialists were brought in. They also trusted it to be trick executed by the family until they also started to observe strange activity. Psychics were called and examinations performed. Hypotheses were introduced and immediately exposed. Something appeared to occur inside the Herman home, and what it was nobody knew. Eventually the family moved, yet the story had discovered its way into mainstream society. In 1982, the film Poltergeist hit theaters, and, while the film plays out vastly different than genuine occasions, the makers have asserted that the story of Papa the Poltergeist was the reason for the screenplay. 5 Place, When a Stranger Calls. We've all heard the account of the sitter who continues getting calls from somebody inquiring as to whether she has minded the kids. As the open-air fire yarn goes, the call comes in so much of the time that the young lady, justifiably concerned, calls the police. At the point where the following call rings through, they follow it just to find the call is originating from inside the house. It is a genuinely unnerving turn, and the reason for the 1979 film When a Stranger Calls. However, did you know there is some reality to this legend? The initial 20 minutes of the film are supposed to be probably the most exciting in film history, keeping the crowd as eager and anxious as ever. The film was a triumph, prodding a continuation, When a Stranger Calls back, just as a change in 2006. 4th place. Scream. The 1996 film Scream was not just affected by a consistent with-life sequential executioner. Yet in addition, the previously mentioned When a Stranger Calls, the opening scene of Scream has a little youngster at home alone when the telephone rings and a voice on the opposite end starts getting some information about terrifying motion pictures. For reasons unknown, the call is from an incredible who is in the house. The film delineates a modest community where neighborhood youth are followed and tortured by a mobile phone employing executioner in a veil in their resemblance of the Scream by painter Edward Munch. To state the film depended on obvious occasions might be somewhat of a stretch, however reality helped have an impact in its creation. 3rd place. The Blob, first discharged in 1958 and afterward a revamp in 1980. The Blob tells the story of a meteor that collides with Earth and discharges a thick animal that retains any living thing it interacts with. As it assimilates, it additionally develops until in the end it arrives at gigantic extents and assaults the town. Was there any fact behind it? Philadelphia, 1950. 2 cops report seeing something skim down from the sky and land in a field. Upon examination they found an odd, purplish substance with a comparative consistency to cleanser that broke down when contacted. After 30 minutes the space jam had totally softened away. The Air Force was called. Be that as it may. As there was nothing left to look at, nothing happened to it. Still the thought was out there, and it worked. Was the establishment for the story composed by Kay Lineker and Theodore Simonson. 2nd place. Annabelle. This one beginnings in 1970 after a nursing understudy got an antique Raggedy Ann doll as a birthday present from her mom. Very quickly she and her flatmate saw odd things occurring in their loft. They would discover the doll in unexpected situations in comparison to what they left it, and odd, enigmatic notes started to show up with messages like, "Help me." A clairvoyant was called, and educated them that the doll was controlled by a little youngster named Annabelle. The flatmates attempted to let the soul dwell with them. Be that as it may, as time passed by things started to take a dim turn. Scratches started to show up on them. Reports of blood overflowing from the doll, and one even guaranteed they were attacked. That is when Ed and Lorraine Warren were brought in. They analyzed the doll and confirmed that the soul was really satanic in nature. They purged the condo and returned the doll to their mysterious exhibition hall where it remains bolted up right up till the present time. 1st place. Jaws. Thought about probably the most frightening film, everything being equal, Jaws is the one that made everybody reluctant to get in the water. Discharged in 1975. The film is really adjusted from the novel composed by Peter Benchley. Jaws tells the story of a 25-foot great white shark that goes on a man-eating binge in the traveler town of Amity over a 4th of July weekend. After various assaults, 3 men, Sheriff Martin Brady, oceanographer Matt Hooper and self-broadcasted shark tracker Quint, are conveyed to dispatch the beast. No matter where the thought originated from, Jaws is a film that holds an uncommon spot in the hearts of ghastliness fans. It has spun off a few continuations, is as yet a staple at neighborhood drive-ins more than 45 years after the fact.